The story begins by showing us a man named John who has arrived from another planet. John previously lived on Earth like any other human being. However, when he finds himself on this new planet, he discovers extraordinary powers he never had before. These powers include the ability to jump immense distances and defeating terrifyingly giant beasts with his bare hands without any weapons. Let's look back a little at what John's life was like on Earth before he came here. While on Earth, John was a captain leading a cavalry unit. At one point, they were in a battle with their enemies, and during that time, John's group was unfortunate and severely wounded. John took his beloved friend and entered a cave waiting for the enemies to leave the area. As expected, once the enemies left, something happened that prevented John and his friend from leaving the cave. What happened was that when John looked further into the cave, he saw huge piles of gold and precious treasures he had never seen before. As John went inside to see this wealth, a man with the power to disappear and reappear at will, the guardian of this hidden place, suddenly appeared behind him. At the time, because the man didn't want anyone to know about this place, he tried to kill John. However, because John was a heroic soldier who led cavalry battles, the Guardian couldn't defeat him as planned, and instead, John defeated the man. After defeating him, a glowing object fell from the man's hand. Curious, John went and picked it up. It was at that exact moment that John left Earth and arrived on this planet he didn't know. After this happened, a young man, who is John's nephew, received a letter written by John himself. The letter read, "Your Uncle John has locked himself inside a tomb that no one can open from the outside, and he did this before he died. Now he is dead in there, and no one can open it." When the boy opened the message and started reading, he found the entire detailed story of how his Uncle John was in the cavalry battle, how he entered the cave, and how he woke up on another planet. From here on, every story we see is what the boy is reading from the book. As the boy continues to read his uncle's story, John describes it like this. "When I first arrived, the place was a desert filled with dust. All you could see were dry trees, mountains, and soil. At first, I tried to walk just as I did on Earth, but it didn't work. When I used the energy required for a small step, because the gravity of this place was completely different from Earth's, it would lift me up and throw me from one place to another. Gradually, I learned how to walk without falling, and it was then that I discovered the first of many powers I gained here, the ability to reach great distances in a single leap without much effort. Using this power to jump around, I realized that the planet I was on was not Earth, but Mars," John wrote in his journal. The first thing John did after that was to look at a large chest nearby. When he looked inside, there were small eggs. Soon these eggs hatched and green creatures emerged. John wasn't very panicked because he assumed these creatures were common on Mars. Instead, what startled him was when the leaders of this place, the Thark tribe, came running towards him. Those hatched creatures belonged to these Tharks. John tried to escape them using his jumping ability. One of the Tharks was impressed by John's skill and told others not to attack, then slowly approached him. Although the Thark and John tried to speak peacefully, they couldn't find a common language. Seeing this lack of communication, John jumped and grabbed the Thark's weapon to defend himself, but he couldn't do much. Unable to even use the weapon he grabbed, he was taken by the Tharks to their settlement. The scene changes as the Tharks bring John to their home. The only creatures John saw there were these Tharks. The main reason they didn't kill him and brought him there was the jumping ability he showed them on the mountain. They told him, "From now on, you are one of us," and began to care for him like they do their children. First, John was made to sleep on the same platform as the infants. His hands and feet were bound tightly with chains, and all his facial hair was removed. After shaving him, they dipped him in an unknown liquid and washed him for a long time. While John didn't understand what they were doing, the Tharks had a reason. When infants or anything new arrives, they clean the entire body with what they consider an antivirus to prevent diseases or infections. Once the infants are cleaned this way, someone from the tribe who wants to raise them takes them. In this case, a Thark named Sola took John to raise. She told him she would take him to her home when the time came, but for now he should stay put. Meanwhile, John had no desire to stay in this place where all the Thark children were clinging to him. After pushing the children off, he decided to escape while all the Tharks were sleeping. However, a creature named Woola, who is like a pet to these Tharks, came to John. She seemed to say, "You shouldn't escape from here. I am the guard who protects these little ones," warning John not to trouble her. John had no time to listen to Woola's request. After breaking his chains, he immediately used his jumping ability to try and escape the Tharks.
On the surface, Woola looks like an ordinary animal, but she has a special ability. No matter how fast John tried to jump, Woola would reach the landing spot before his feet even touched the ground. When John realized he could never escape such a fast pet, he intentionally jumped into the middle of a group of Tharks who had gathered to drink, hoping to distract her. Woola followed him there and started barking at the height where John was. The other Tharks didn't understand what Woola was doing. They thought she had gone mad and began beating her to death. Since all the Tharks were focused on the beating, John could have escaped freely. However, when he saw that innocent Woola was about to be killed because of him, instead of escaping, he jumped into the crowd to save her life. When he punched one of the Tharks, his powerful blow killed the Thark instantly. This greatly angered the Tharks, as they didn't want any of their kind to die. If John can kill one of us with a single punch, he is a threat to our future, they said, and they beat him and decided that both he and his guardian Sola would be punished the next day. John Carter's incredible journey is just beginning. Before the story intensifies, please help us reach more people by liking this video. If you're new to the channel, join the H family by hitting that subscribe button. Now let's get back to this gripping tale. The next day, John felt deep regret seeing Sola, who had been struggling to care for him, being punished for his mistake. What surprised him most was that Sola's entire body was covered in scars. This showed that Sola often took responsibility for children and was burned because of them. While the Tharks were punishing John and Sola, one of the Tharks came running to report that Zods were coming toward them. Hearing this, the Thark leader, Tarkus, the patriarch, said the punishment they had received so far was enough and ordered all Tharks to go into hiding. After entering the hideout, the patriarch began telling John their history. In this place, opposite the Tharks, there are two redskin nations, one called Zodanga and the other called Helium. Both Zodangas and Heliums are far more technologically advanced than the Tharks. Their weapons and flying machines make the Tharks look very backward. Previously, the gap between Zodanga and Helium wasn't that wide. They were equal in technology and military skill. However, at one point, 3 creatures claiming to be messengers of God came to the king of Zodanga. Those messengers gave him a weapon called the Ninth Ray. After getting this power-transmitting weapon, the king of Zodanga became great and powerful. Even now, he can use this weapon to destroy both Heliums and Tharks at once. Wherever he goes, these messengers are by his side, helping him even when he attacks the Heliums. This is why Zodanga is currently superior to all other tribes, the patriarch explained to John. Returning to the present, the Zodanga leader was checking the faces of Helium soldiers he had captured. Right now, he is looking for the princess of Helium. But the princess was clever. As soon as their ship and soldiers were under enemy control, she disguised herself and slipped into another ship. Her plan was to use that ship to escape. Unfortunately, the Zodangas found out she was in that ship and cruelly attacked it from both sides. Meanwhile, John was hiding in the cave with the patriarch, watching everything through a long-distance viewer. He realized that the Helium princess was a human like him and saw her on the verge of falling from the airship. Using his power, John reached the spot quickly and saved her. Seeing this, the Zodanga king and his soldiers came in large numbers to kill John, who had saved the princess they wanted dead. Being smart, John knew he couldn't fight them all hand to hand, so he didn't fight with his fists. Instead, he jumped into one of the ships that was said to have a powerful weapon and began killing the Zodanga soldiers and destroying their other ships. Meanwhile, the Zodanga king was about to use the weapon given by the messengers to kill John. However, before he could use the Ninth Ray, the messenger who gave it to him told him not to. Instead, he told him they needed the man alive and ordered him to capture him. After hearing the messenger, the Zodanga king went to the ship where John was. Since the patriarch had previously shown John who the Zodanga king was, John started fighting him as soon as he arrived. During the fight, although John had no prior combat training, he managed to stay alive using his jumping power and quick reflexes. However, this only bought him time. It didn't make him the winner. The Zodanga king, having superior fighting skills, gained the upper hand and pinned John down. Seeing this, the Tharks, following the patriarch's orders, immediately attacked the ship where the Zodanga king and John were. John realized the Tharks weren't trying to blow him up while he was in the ship, but knew he had the ability to escape at any moment, creating an escape opportunity for him. As soon as he realized this, John jumped out and escaped. The Zodanga king and some of his men also escaped in another ship, but the first ship was destroyed by the Thark attack. When John, having escaped death, returned to the Tharks, their attitude toward him had completely changed. Although Tharks are less advanced than Zodangas and Heliums, they believe Heliums but good. Because John saved the Helium princess, they began to consider him a hero. The princess, amazed by John's jumping ability, asked him to teach it to her people. John told her it wasn't something from practice, it was because he came from Earth. In return, he asked the princess to help him find a way back to Earth. Then the princess took him to a cave, which she explained was a sacred place containing great truths believed by all creatures on this planet. Those 3 messengers of God had also been there. Surely the way back to Earth is found here, she said, promising to find his way back.
However, she set a condition. If you help us defeat the Zodangas in the upcoming war, I promise to find the gate for you to return to Earth. John agreed to help them. Before they could finalize another agreement, the Thark general and his soldiers arrived. Because John and Sola had entered this sacred place where no one is allowed, they were told a heavy punishment awaited them and were captured by the general's soldiers. When the patriarch heard this, he pulled out a knife and threatened John, pretending to be angry. He took the three of them into a tent, and once inside, he told him he was just acting. He did this to save his only daughter, Sola. The Tharks think I am punishing you now. If you take my daughter and escape while you have the chance, I will make it happen, the patriarch offered. John agreed. Meanwhile, when the general outside opened the tent to see what was happening, no one was there. John, Sola, and the princess had already escaped with the patriarch's help. Their main goal now was to leave this planet and escape being killed by Thark soldiers. On their way, they crossed a long desert and reached the only body of water in that part of Mars. After traveling through the water for a long time, they reached a specific spot. At that moment, a special device the patriarch had given them started glowing blue. This showed they were in the right place, and John began following the light with the princess. Although John didn't understand it, this place held advanced technology built by Heliums and Zodangas. The Helium princess knew exactly what it was and told John what to do. Walk here, don't go there, place the object the patriarch gave you here, she instructed. Finally, they found what they were looking for. Since the writing was in their language, the princess read it for John. The text said that John's real body was not there. His real body was still on Earth, and this body was a projection or clone. Just as they were about to enter another agreement, they heard a loud commotion outside. The attackers were the Warhoon tribe, the arch-enemies of the Tharks. If they couldn't escape now, their chance of survival was 0. Hearing this from the princess, John immediately went down to the boat and they started heading back. After finishing the water route, they got onto land and moved quickly, but when John looked back, he saw the Warhoon members were numerous and their mounts were fast. He realized they couldn't outrun them. Understanding this, he told Sola to take the princess and go, while he and Woola stayed behind to fight. It was thought that the numerous Warhoons would kill John instantly. However, with John's jumping power and Woola's incredible speed, they couldn't kill him as expected. Instead, while Woola distracted them by running back and forth, John picked off the Warhoon members one by one. On the other hand, although the princess believed John was strong, she didn't think he could defeat so many. Her fear was right. After fighting for a long time, John eventually lost consciousness and collapsed. At that same moment, a skyship arrived and dropped powerful bombs on the Warhoons, forcing them to flee. The Warhoons, like the Tharks, had no technological knowledge and realized they couldn't win against such tech. The scene changes to show the ship landing and the King of Helium stepping out. Seeing her father, the princess ran and hugged him, and she was told that John had fainted but was still alive. However, the Zodanga king had also come with the Helium king on the same ship. When the princess saw him and went to kill him, her father stopped her. "We have made an agreement with the Zodanga king. If you marry him, there will be no war between us. Imagine the union we can create. All that is required is your marriage." The king told her he had already settled the deal. When John woke up, the Zodanga king came to him and said he was going to marry the princess, telling him it would be best if he left. John immediately went to the princess's room. She dismissed her servants and confirmed it was true. She was going to marry him. John chose silence instead of speaking. Frustrated by his silence, the princess gave John the device to return to Earth and taught him the incantation.
When the Zodanga king opened the door to the room, John was gone. Feeling alone and thinking John had left her, the princess started crying. In reality, John hadn't left. He was hiding there. A shape-shifting messenger who was observing waited for everyone to leave and captured John with magic. This shapeshifter was the one they believed was God's messenger. He put John under his control, making everything John felt, said, or did subject to his commands. After controlling John, the messenger began talking about their way of life. If you ask these people on Mars how old they are, they don't even know the numbers. We live for a very long time.
During all this time, what we find interesting is war, creating new things, and fighting other tribes. If we didn't do this, life would be very boring, he said, telling John that even if he returned to Earth, the planet wouldn't last, but their lives are long. Meanwhile, the king of Zodanga wasted no time and began the wedding ceremony with the princess. During the program, John, who was still under control, was brought along. The messenger used his magic to transform himself into a soldier, then an old man, then an old woman, entering wherever he wanted and using John. The scene changes as the messenger prepares to send John away in a pod. Since John's mind was under his control, he didn't know what was happening. At that moment, Wula arrived and bit the messenger, which allowed John to regain his senses. Although John was back to himself, he didn't know how to operate the Martian pods since he'd never used them. Plus, the messenger's soldiers were chasing him. While John was worried about how to escape, he suddenly saw Sola. Sola killed the chasing soldiers one by one. Having forgotten how he escaped the Tharks before, John thought things were as they used to be and returned to the Thark settlement. Unfortunately, the general had replaced the patriarch and thrown John into prison. He also imprisoned the former leader, the patriarch, accusing him of treason. They were thrown into an arena where a giant white ape-like creature was released. This beast was blind, but used its sense of smell and hearing to crush and kill people. Without any weapons, John and the patriarch were expected to fight and defeat this beast, or be crushed. On the other hand, the Tharks loved their former leader, the patriarch. Even though the general wanted the patriarch dead to secure his power, the people cheered every time the patriarch survived, annoying the general. John was chained to a heavy rock, making it impossible to break free or fight the beast. Every time he moved, the blind beast followed the sound. Seeing their struggle, the general added another beast to the arena. While the beast was closing in on the patriarch, Sola jumped into the arena to save her father. The beast ripped apart another Thark instead, giving them a moment to survive. Meanwhile, the beast was throwing John around. Although John was getting hurt, he actually liked it, because every time the beast threw him, it helped break the chains. His plan worked. After being tossed around, the chain finally broke. John used the heavy rock at the end of the chain to kill the beast that was tormenting him. On the other side, Sola was trying to help her father escape. Another beast was about to catch them when John jumped in and took the weapon Sola provided. After a long struggle, John cut open the beast's stomach and emerged. Knowing how much the Tharks loved the patriarch, John challenged the general. If your leader can fight and win, let him continue to lead. The crowd pressured the general to enter the arena, and when he did, John killed him instantly. The scene changes as John, Sola, and the patriarch gather soldiers and head to the Zodanga city to save the princess before she marries the Zodanga king. Unfortunately, when they arrived, there was no wedding in Zodanga. The Zodanga king had anticipated trouble and moved the ceremony to Helium.
John told the others to bring the ships, but since he needed to get there fast, he used a pod to reach Helium. The princess was about to drink from the cup to seal the marriage. Fortunately, John arrived just in time, ruining the Zodanga king's plan. John revealed that the Zodanga king was being led by the messengers to take over
All of Helium, and was only marrying the princess for that reason. The king revealed his true nature and took the princess hostage, and a massive war broke out between the Helium and Zodanga soldiers. Angry at John for ruining his plans, the Zodanga king fought him and tried to kill him. However, the Thark ships John had called for arrived just in time, saving his life again. John finally captured the Zodanga king. When he asked for the device to return to Earth, the messenger killed the king with magic before he could speak. Meanwhile, the patriarch who found the return device didn't realize the messenger had disguised himself as John. When the real John came jumping in, the patriarch realized the one in front of him was an imposter. The messenger used his magic to vanish before they could kill him. No one was sad that the messenger escaped, as the device to return to Earth was still in the patriarch's hand. Everyone was happy, and John kissed the princess in front of everyone. The scene changes, and John says he doesn't want to go back to Earth anymore, and throws the device away. While Wula was by his side, the hidden messenger captured John again. Holding the throne device in one hand and John in the other, the messenger sent John back to Earth against his will. John found himself back in the cave where he had hidden from the soldiers. He touched the device repeatedly, but he couldn't go back. When he looked outside, Mars was visible millions of miles away. John desperately wanted to go back. For the next 10 years, he read books and conducted research to find a way. Finally, he succeeded, but he knew the messengers were still hunting him in disguise. Remember, this entire story is being read by the nephew who received the message. Finally, what his uncle wanted from him was to protect the tomb from the messengers. Following his uncle's orders, the boy wrote the password and opened the tomb. At that moment, the messenger who had been following him appeared behind him with a dagger. Before he could strike the boy, John, who was supposedly dead, shot him from behind. Everything the boy read was true. After all his searching, John found a way back, but didn't want the messengers to take it easily. He had lured them into a trap by bringing his nephew there. His plan worked. Having killed the messenger on Earth, he could now use the device to go back to the world he missed. At the end of the story, John locks the tomb from the inside and returns to his princess. In return, even though no one can open the tomb, his nephew is given the responsibility of making sure no one takes the device. And that concludes the incredible journey of John Carter. What did you think of Uncle John's 10-year search and his ultimate return to the world he loved? Did the ending satisfy you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, please support us by liking and sharing this video with your friends. For more gripping movie summaries, subscribe and join the Film Lens Reviews family. Until next time, stay tuned.